So I'm joined with Team Dr. Bounce.
And
it turns out that one of our staff members is also in Dr. Bounce. Okay,
one of us.
Yeah. You haven't been very impartial. It's fair to say.
You think?
Rightly so, though. This was one of those games where when I first saw it ages ago, I was like, "That's interesting. These guys are doing something good." And then saw it at EXPO, and it's like, you need to sell that. You just need to sell that. It's very smart. It's one of those few games where it's really fun and addictive for high skill level players, for adults, but also kids. Like when you get those kind of games where they are genuinely, now anyone watching who needs to tell us who their target audience is in any of their materials, ignore what I'm about to say, but it was genuinely one of those games that appeals to everyone. Never ever write that as your target audience, please. Never. However, it's one of those games that potentially can appeal to everyone, which is kind of nuts. And it's because it's got such fun and engaging mechanics. So, sorry, I'm babbling on. No. I like this game too. So I guess what we should do now is ask if you would introduce yourself, and then we'll kind of get cracking talking about and playing the game.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Joe. I was the team's writer, and then...
I'm Cole. I was the one of the programmers for Dr. Bounce.
And also the playtest expert.
And also the playtester. And also the lighting baker. General doing everything.
And also 3 a.m. up
yes.
up night programming.
all night committer.
Sorry. We don't support crunch.
We do not support crunch.
Don't do it.
Let's just not talk about those nights. Let's just not talk
that
about
didn't
it.
Happen. That didn't happen. It's cool.
Yeah.
I guess so. I think I'll ask a little bit about the game first, and then Sokol, you can jump in and play some. And if you suck at it, then these guys can.
I suck at it compared
do it
to
better.
Cole.
Okay.
It turns out, just one little thing. It turns out Cole was having a go at Blade Runners earlier, and that maybe there was some stream sniping. No.
Into the mic.
Couldn't be me. I look. Milo Ari Bound was running around on screen. I'm just saying. He jumped straight out of Dr. Bounce and straight into Blade Gunners. So.
Well, it's nice that you support each other's games, even if it is just to
smash Matthew supervisor.
A lot of very friendly rivalry.
Yeah. What is the game?
Yeah, so Dr. Bounce is a fast-paced fusion of first-person shooters and pinball. So you take the role of Milo Ari Bound, a young child scientist who wants to be just like his mother. However, she's quite busy trying to create life. And unfortunately, she's kind of been neglecting him a little bit. So as kids do, he gets a little cheeky. And takes it upon himself to create life himself by infusing some lovely jelly with science MacGuffins.
Science
MacGuffins, yeah. Credit to Sokol for that one. I've had that one locked in since you mentioned it.
Love it.
That caused, he did it, he made life, but unfortunately the slimes expanded and exploded and spread all across the lab and kidnapped his mother. And now he must arm himself with his new fancy little bouncy gun, with his AI companion Grandad Doc alongside to go through the lab and save his mother and kill the very things he created, in a very morbid way of putting it, I guess.
Brutal, yeah. Okay,
I promise you it's not that dark.
Yeah, no, it's really not. So that's the kind of narrative direction, freeing a mother, and that's the ultimate goal. For me, the one of the most interesting aspects of your game is the mechanics and the kind of the layering and scaling of essentially one mechanic that kind of branches into other mechanics. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about the initial mechanic that you found and essentially built the game around, and how that grew into what we have today?
Can I play whilst you're doing that?
Yeah, sure. Sokol just wants to play the game.
I just want to play the game.
We are very flattered by that.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So the original idea started out with one of our designers, Jacob, shout out, who basically during the very early stages pitched to us the idea of a game where you bounced your gun. And it went through a few different versions before we found Dr. Bounce. But yeah, I think everything during the development process was built around that singular idea of bouncing. So the entire time, sort of everything we went through, all our different ideas, few bits of cut content, few things that stayed in. They were all designed to support that one mechanic. And
that's that you bounce
your
gun.
So bouncing your gun, bouncing yourself. That's all in level 3. And just everything was built around that one idea. So when we were designing the enemies, for example, their actual appearences were all designed with that in mind of.
Hence the jelliness.
Yeah, exactly.
The
so
enemies.
Yeah, when we were coming up with the enemy concept, it was like, what is bouncy? Jelly. That's where we'll go.
So essentially, your gun is kind of useless until you throw it at something, and it bounces back, and that gives you a charge.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was. Yeah,
and you can do that more than once to build up more of a charge. But obviously, you're doing this whilst you're being shot at, and then I guess later down the line, you start to iterate on that mechanic. And what other kind of things can you then start to do with the bounce mechanic?
So, once you've gone past the first level, you unlock normal shooting. So that's used to help stun enemies. So if you're struggling to throw the gun because it has a bit of a lead you have to throw, you can shoot them normally and then stun them. But with the bounce mechanic, as you progress through the game, not only do the enemies have different variations of how they bounce the gun, but once you get into level 3, you have bounce pads. And those bounce pads become very useful for taking out what you then see is the no bounce enemy, which is a bit of a threat.
Oh, so you do have one enemy that you can't bounce your gun against, but you still need your charges to defeat that guy. Interesting.
Yes, it's the little spiky purple people that chase you down. But they
Suckle, watch out for the little spiky purple people who chase you down. You have some of the best terminology in your game with your MacGuffins.
Science MacGuffins.
Yeah,
always the
MacGuffins. So the mechanics are clearly what the game was built around, and they are just beautiful and slick and so much fun. But for me, one of the things that kind of gets me with your game is the amount of player feedback. So you're, as a player, you're kind of receiving information from so many different areas, loads of audio cues, loads of like visual indications and stuff. How did it come to look like this? Like who was working on what? Because we've got so many like particles and like UI elements and all sorts of things going on. Like how did it get to this bit? And I know that's kind of an open, vague question, but there's so much stuff going on that I don't know which other way to phrase it. Like all of that player feedback. How was the development of that?
So it started on day 1, really.
Yeah.
From day 1, we had our amazing designers creating all different kinds of player feedback, all different kinds of particle systems, all sorts of visual aids to tell you what was happening as you were doing different mechanics were happening. So day 1, we started working on what would happen when you bounced the gun. So I think within the first few weeks when we had our prototype stage, we had already gotten the kind of field feedback for the bouncy enemies when they would go kind of expand and was showing off that you've kind of bounced against them. So really we've had the kind of player feedback being developed on throughout the entire progression of the game's development. A lot of the time player feedback is often what we use to decide whether or not something needs to have more player feedback. So a lot of the time we were getting feedback that like people weren't sure what was happening with different mechanics, like when they had charge and stuff like that. So we added both the icon or the text on screen that shows you how much charge you have, but also the gun starts to visually show that there's charge in it.
It's kind of, for me, that's one of the biggest achievements in the game. It's just how much feedback you're getting and how well it's managed. Like it's very visible, but it never takes over. So it's like it's a real achievement to get that kind of clarity of feedback. and it's one of the areas that I think student teams struggle with a little bit more. Like, good UI design is way harder than people think. Like, way harder than people think.
Harder.
Like, crap UI design. Yeah, that's easy enough. And you can even put some programmer art in there. No offense to programmers, just most of you aren't very artistically minded from what I've seen. There are exceptions, but you could even just chuck some crap programmer art in there, and there's feedback. But to get it where it actually it feels like an organic part of the game process is damn hard, and that's just UI, right? So then the sound effects are really crisp, like really fresh and really responsive. And then we've got the all of the like speed lines and other kind of elements that are popping in when you're going faster. Then there's the way the gun feels and reacts. Like, there's so much stuff going on that tells you what's happening on screen. And what I tend to find, particularly when it's a gun-based game, is that they kind of have like a single-minded idea of what that is. And it's like they might have nice animation, but the sound's a little bit lacking. Or they might have hardly any animation, but have really good sound. And rarely do I see it where you get so much feedback about what's happening and it really feel kind of rewarding to use that object. So
thank you.
So it's really impressive, and there's so much in there that it's kind of hard to unpick all of those elements. So it's nice to hear that essentially you were kind of entwining that in your process from day one, because it's a lot of different disciplines as well. And was there a decision in a meeting to kind of like really focus on that, or did you just happen to strike gold and have a bunch of people who had that in their heart when they came to the team?
There were a couple of meetings we had to discuss what would be final, but a lot of the time it's just people on our team are amazing, and we just experiment with different things in our own time and say, hey, look at this cool thing, I think we should work on this further. Or just a lot of inspiration came from different things that the team was doing, from the feedbacks of what we were getting in our playtesting sessions, and just generally our team just having good intuition with the kind of things that the game needed. One of the favorite things of our team, I will say, in terms of the kind of feedback you get, Doc.
Yeah.
Joe's amazing writing mixed with the amazing work from Jamie on the audio. Doc has a lot of moments where you'll throw Doc and he'll hit something and then go, my hip, or one of his iconic lines that we really like. And that's just the kind of little feedback and detail that we like to add. And I think it pays off.
I guess I'm going to call that fun around the edges. So not necessarily critical to the whole gameplay experience, but those little touches around the edges. That's when we as staff are looking at a game and thinking, this is polished, when you can actually spend time on those bits around the edges.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting because Doc was quite late in the game. When we started out, the idea was to have very strong environmental storytelling, but we didn't intend to have dialogue. It wasn't until about February time where we had someone during a playtest go, hey, it'd be cool if we had a companion with us. And so sort of sat down and got this character created. And, those voice acting sessions with Jamie and Nathan, who did all the voice acting, who's one of our designers, who absolutely smashed it. It was an awesome experience. And I think a lot of the time with things like voice acting and dialogue and stuff in games is it could feel quite separate. And I think the goal and the intent for me was I wanted it to support what was happening. Like you said, the feedback, it's really important for players to get a feedback to what they're doing. And having Doc react to not only like narrative moments, but also gameplay moments, like reacting to when he hits a wall, reacting to when you've thrown him, like that audio feedback to support the visual it's a really fun process. And I'm really glad that most people seem quite fond of it. I if I do say so myself. I think most people don't realize how late in the game he came on, and that's probably the biggest compliment I could ever take.
It does feel as though that was part of the kind of intention all the way through. Almost as though that was your original kind of design brief or hook that you went with. It's like, going through this dangerous world with your trusty companion. It's like, no, we just added him in last minute. So yeah, it's again, I guess it shows that you're a team that's well organized and putting the work in, but a team that's having fun. Like
yeah, definitely, yeah.
And I think that's an important thing. And I guess if I was going to ask, kind of like if there are any takeaways from this particular development cycle that you kind of like would like to take forward yourself, or you'd like to kind of like push out to other people as like a really key thing to kind of look for, keep hold of, aim for, strive for, anything like that, would it perhaps be related to the team kind of fun element, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, we are quite a big team. We're a team of 12.
Yeah.
And, we had some questions during the expo where people were like, was that difficult to manage and whatnot? It's like, not really. It's like, some people could see that as 12 people to manage. For me, I see that as 12 individuals with really fun, silly ideas that we can all put together. Having, people like, for me, a writer, it's very easy for writers to stay in one spot and stay in their writing.
For sure.
And leave it at that. But for us, a lot of the time I was helping with design and I was helping with the artists. And then the artists would go and they would help with the designers as well.
Yeah.
Programmers would help. It's like all the different specialisms going almost outside of their specialisms and working as one cohesive unit with all our really random ideas of going, hey, what if we just did this one really silly thing? And everyone going, yeah, let's see where that goes. And it seemed to have paid off. So I think having so many different individuals with different ideas and different concepts and whatnot, I think that's always a really good thing to push for.
So I guess basically what you're saying is put teamwork first and foremost, regardless of your own individual skill, your own like agenda and all of those things. If you put the team and working as a team first, then you nail it.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to bring up points of discussion. A lot of the good changes that came to our game were people having concerns whilst working on it, and we talk it out, we go through it, we see what we can do to fix it, and just a lot of iteration. And don't be afraid if you really don't like one of the things that you would consider a core part of the game you're working on. It's always good to have that team discussion.
And I guess that comes from having a good, solid kind of feeling in the team.
Definitely, yes.
Like knowing that you have a voice, knowing that you will be heard, and kind of like no idea is a stupid idea. Like knowing that you have that safe place to operate in basically allows everything to be looked at, everything to be talked about, everything to be developed, and ultimately allows an incredibly developed, polished product like Dr. Bounce.
It's the team, I can tell you, for Dr. Bounce, we one of the core things for us was spending time with each other just outside of development.
Yeah.
Getting to know each other personally on a more friendly note. And I feel like now with all of us together, it's almost like we're one big family.
Yeah.
Especially after yesterday.
I think that's a really key point, and it's been brought up a few times today by teams who really enjoyed their production, and you can see it in the quality of their game, is that actually they took the time to hang out. They took the time to get to know each other. And I think there's something to be said for that, particularly in the backdrop that we've just had with the pandemic. It's so easy to, when you're isolated, it's so easy to kind of not treat people with the respect they deserve. Like we've all played online games here, I'm sure. Yeah. And the amount of people who just say the most insanely toxic things. And you're like, dude, I know you would not say that to me if we were just sat here. You wouldn't be like that. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be like that. Some of the stuff.
Hopefully not.
And I think that's kind of like one of the key things.
Out and
hanging out.
Let's
go on, boss
spray.
it. Boss level.
Cole's about to show everyone everyone how to play this game at max speed.
Yeah, that's right. We got like 2 minutes, so you need to complete it in that time. Go.
Probably could. You probably could.
So you might want your mic.
Should I keep the mic?
Yeah, it's good for you.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow, it comes with.
Yeah,
awesome.
The mic follows you everywhere you go.
Circle's been on stream for quite a bit now, and he's only just figured out how the mic works. It's a miracle that this has been rolling as well as it has.
It's been going quite well, I think.
You've done brilliant.
Yeah, I've just sat there, played games.
Yeah.
Just knew my place.
Where was I? So so we've had a lot of isolation, and a lot of it is like the world of online gaming, which it's so easy to treat someone as though they're not a real human being and not have that respect for them. Whereas, like, we're a team-based area of production. And I guess by hanging out with people, getting to know them as real human beings, it makes it way easier to talk to people and respect people as full human beings instead of having like bias and all sorts of other stuff. So I guess that's top tip. Go get drunk with your teammates.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think one of the biggest misconceptions people have, it's a very important part of the process, getting drunk. Yeah, I think one of the biggest misconceptions people have about both gaming and game development is it's an antisocial thing.
Yeah.
But it couldn't be further from the truth. It's like, obviously you're right. Online, there is some toxicity, unfortunately.
Yeah, sure.
That's everywhere in the world. But the amount of people that I've personally met and become very close with, both, through teamwork, but also through collaborating with other teams and seeing their games and stuff. Like, without, game development and without just gaming as a whole, would never have happened.
Yeah.
And I think that, I spoke to some people in EXPO yesterday, and it's like, people would probably assume that an event like EXPO wouldn't happen with gaming because it's like everyone's going to live in their basements and they're going to sit there and play their games all the time. But in reality, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
That's not how any of the programming
not
works
at all.
anymore. No. Gone are the days of you live in your basement and you're just solidly programming a single game on your own. No, it's a team thing. That's kind of the thing which we encourage here at Falmouth, this idea of doing it for real, working with large teams to kind of get games built from scratch. And it's wonderful to see how well all of you guys work together.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think we should probably take a minute just to thank Nick as well. So,
Yes,
do you
definitely.
guys want to say anything about Nick?
Yeah, so Nick was our original supervisor who has now gone off to work at Ubisoft, which massive congrats to him for that. But he was our original supervisor before the amazing stuff we took over.
I don't know about
And amazing, definitely. And he was such an incredible support during the early processes of this game. And there were times where we weren't sure about certain things, and obviously game development is a very fun but can be a very tricky process. But Nick was with us 100%, and when he came back to the expo, the team was saying it was like he had never left.
Yeah.
He fit right back in, and it was awesome to see him again and interact with him again. So massive shout out to Nick for being such a supportive and amazing supervisor, and massive shout out to Sokol as well for being a supportive, amazing supervisor.
Well, thank you guys for being an amazing team.
Thank you.
You didn't complete it. We're at the end of your allotted time now, and you didn't complete it.
I'm mildly disappointed in you, Cole.
But I mean, hopefully for the viewers at home, well, I say at home, you could be anywhere, but the viewers online, you're kind of getting an idea of what this game looks like when you start to get good at it. And that's what I love about it. Like, you can come in quite casually and really enjoy it because of that amount of player feedback. But if you take the time with it, it's a pretty high skill game, and it rewards you. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing, and such an achievement. You should all be very proud. I imagine you are.
Yeah, no, immensely. Like it's I was saying to Cole earlier, like when I started game development, I didn't expect to find myself with such an amazing team making a game like this. I was very nervous about it, and now I've come out the other end of it, and I feel so immensely proud of not only myself but also everyone that worked on this game, everyone that put the time and effort in, and the odd all-nighter. I cannot be prouder of all of us, and I want to say thank you to the entire team for being absolutely fantastic and being incredible. I'm going to try not get too sappy though.
Yeah. Go on. We've got graduation where we can cry at. All right,
there'll be a little bit of crying at graduation, just a little bit.
I can't talk about it. I can't even talk about it. Yeah,
just a little more. Yeah, there was a little bit of it yesterday.
All right then. Thank you so much for coming on stream, and we absolutely love your game, and we'll be pushing it out to everyone that we come across.
Thank you so much.
Great job, guys.
So just super proud of you. And go get some rest. Take a big,
Definitely.
deep breath out. You've done it. And we're so proud. And we'll be looking forward to seeing what you guys do next.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a lovely rest
Cool.
of the day and enjoy
Will
the
do.
rest of the stream, everyone.
Cool.
Love you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.